Man, it is 4th of July today, and I don't know about you guys, but the 4th is one of my favorite holidays. I absolutely love the 4th. I love, obviously, yes, the fireworks, if you go watch them or if you go get some yourself, those are always a good time. Love, obviously, having drinks, cooking out, hanging out with family, with friends. I love just everything that's involved with it, and obviously, most importantly, celebrating our great country. So it's nice that we're finally here in the midst of July, and that bodes well for us football fans because this is the last month that we will be without football. Ain't that something? This is the last month that we won't have football until March of next year. That's actually a phenomenal thing to hear. But we're back here, guys, for episode 16 of In Hindsight. Hope you all are having a good weekend. This is, I guess, the 4th of July edition. We're not going to do too much this episode, guys. It's the 4th. You guys are spending time with friends, family, or, things like that. I know a lot of you guys have different festivities going on. I have things going on later tonight, which I'm going to have to get ready for after this show. But it's not going to be too crazy today. I know the last, like I said, if you're new here, if you're just coming across my channel here, I just uploaded yesterday. I've been having this podcast I've had this podcast for maybe a couple months now. I'm on Spotify, Podbean. I've been trying to get on Apple Podcasts, guys, and it's been a pain. I'll get on it eventually. But we've also run stuff like iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon, Google, all those kind of things. But yesterday was the debut show of this podcast on YouTube, which I've been wanting to branch it onto this platform. And so I'm really excited about that. I was really excited to do that yesterday. So we're doing a Sunday show today. And if you guys, for all you guys who are listeners of mine already, the last few Sundays have kind of been longer shows. I don't really want to do that here today. I don't, because like I said, it's the 4th. People got things going on. And me personally, I don't want to, be here too long because I also have things that I need to go out and do as well. I'm kind of hanging out with some friends and family today. But anyway, if you guys are new here, thank you so much for tuning in and everything like that. This is sports podcast. I love sports. So if you're into sports and if you love sports discussion of any kind, if you love sports interaction, whatever the case may be, this is the place for you. And we just say things the way it is. We say what needs to be said. We say what needs to be said. And we shoot from the hip, no script, guys. That's how we do it here. That's how business goes around here. But anyway, I'm very excited to continue this journey on the YouTube platform with the podcast. This is, like I said, we uploaded yesterday, so this is really the second episode on YouTube, but this is officially episode 16 of the In Hindsight podcast. And if you guys, like I said, if you guys are interested in checking out previous shows, like I said, Spotify, Podbean, all those different kind of things are on there and are available to you. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs. We had the final set. We know who's playing. We're going to be getting into Demaryius Thomas, officially retired from the NFL. We have Stanley Cup playoffs still going on. Tampa Bay is absolutely kicking ass on Montreal. We'll get briefly into that, but honestly, it's not a big show as what it has been the last few weeks, but really we're going to get big into depth in NBA talk today, but man, it's crazy because I grew up a Phoenix Suns fan, okay? I loved Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, everybody like that, right? And Shawn Marion, Grant Hill. I loved the Suns growing up. And as time kind of went on, I also liked the Heat kind of growing up. I was a fan of Dwayne Wade. So the Heat were kind of the team is like kind of like my second team, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. I don't really have second favorite teams, but growing up, the Suns were my number one, and I really enjoyed the Miami Heat too. But anyway, I started to just kind of drift off from the Suns. It's not that I disliked them or anything like that, but kind of my fandom for the Heat kind of took over a little bit as I kind of started getting into 5th and 6th grade a little bit. More so 6th grade, 7th grade. Before LeBron and Bosh got there, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Not a bandwagon. But I just kind of stopped caring about the Suns after like Stoudemire left, and I didn't like stuff with the front office when Steve Kerr was there and what Robert Sarver was doing with the team. I lost care for the Suns, if that made sense. Like, I still wanted to see him succeed, and I still, wanted them to do well, but I just lost interest, and so the Heat just kind of became my number one team at that, eventually. But it's just really cool seeing it's been 10, 11 years since the Suns have been in the playoffs. So it's just really cool that the Suns not only just made the playoffs and had a great season, but this is their first final appearance since 93. And all the teams they've had with Nash and Stoudemire and those guys, they never made the finals. They would have in 07, I think, if it wasn't for the Tim Donaghy referee situation and controversy that happened that year. But it's just really awesome that the Suns, really kind of just surprised everybody. I don't really think anybody expected the Suns to make the finals. And I've been rooting for them and cheering them on this whole time. And to be straight up with you guys, I lost a lot of interest. I have not cared about the NBA for several years. I hate the way the NBA has changed over the years. I don't, it's just not really team basketball the way it was back when I was growing up in the 2000s, mid 2000s and stuff. I don't like the way it changed, guys. Isolations, 3-point shootouts. You don't really have your dominant big men anymore. A lot of these bigger guys are, yes, like they're good big men, but they're stretch guys. They're shooting big guys, a lot of them, and it's just not my cup of tea. I just don't really like the way the NBA's transcended. There's no really pick and rolls anymore. You don't see really any kind of unique or any kind of offense like that much anymore, right? And we've had so many super teams over the years, and especially with how the NBA was from like 2015 to 2019 when it was Cavs, Warriors, Cavs, Warriors, Cavs, Warriors, Cavs, Warriors. Like, who wants to see that? Nobody wants to see that. Okay, the first time, okay, that's fine. This is the first time the Warriors got there, first time Curry got there. Okay, the following year, okay, we've seen teams go back to back, and we've seen, okay, Cavs, Warriors again. But then after that, it's like enough's enough. Enough was enough. We don't want to see that anymore. And honestly, I think everybody's kind of over the LeBron era, honestly, at this point in time. But because of the Suns and what they've done this year, this is the first time, probably since 2015, that I sat there and I've watched the whole entire playoffs. And it's honestly because of the Suns. That's honestly really the only reason why. But this playoffs this year has been so much better than what we've gotten over the last several years because it's not predictable like the way it was during those years with the Cavs and Warriors because those were the superior teams. It was they were up here and everybody else was down here, right? So we knew that teams like the Clippers in the West or a Memphis or whoever else, they weren't getting past Golden State. Spurs, they weren't getting past Golden State. Even on the Eastern side, Milwaukee wasn't, Miami wasn't. They're not getting past Cleveland. Boston's not. They were just a cream of crop ahead of everybody. And like I said, the first couple years, okay, it was fine. And Oklahoma City wasn't getting past Golden State either. But the first year or two, okay, it's fine. It's fine. But after that, it was old. It was just getting really old. But anyway, it's just been nice because it just feels like this NBA playoffs has just been a big breath of fresh air. And now that we've had not even just the finals now, but the Western Conference Finals, 4 teams that, haven't been there. Clippers never been there. Suns haven't been there in 10, 11 years. Milwaukee, other than the last maybe 4 years or so, they've been a disaster of a franchise. And Atlanta, they haven't sniffed anything like that since the 90s. So I think that it's been absolutely great for the NBA that they've had these 4 teams in their conference finals and who they have in the finals this year. Because, and I'm not just saying that in my opinion, this, numbers-wise, this is the highest rated NBA playoff since 2002. What does that tell you? You had some clown on Twitter the other day say that, having these 4 teams is terrible for the NBA because LeBron and Curry and some of these other top selling jersey guys aren't in it. What? Jersey sellers? That's not good for the casual audience? I would think the casual audience is tired of hearing about LeBron and Stephen Curry. Yeah, how about you look at the NBA ratings, bro? So you must have been, I said this last week, you must have been absolutely miserable and hated the NBA in the 2000s. Even the early 2010s, you must have hated the NBA. Because the West and East were competitive every year. You didn't know who was coming out. It wasn't repetitive. It wasn't predictable. So you're telling me, based off of that statement alone, you enjoy predictability? You enjoy seeing the same thing? You don't have any standards? You don't want to see any new young stars in the NBA grow? You don't want to see the NBA develop new stars? Okay, so these guys just shouldn't, these young guys just shouldn't accomplish anything then in the league, right? It should just strictly just be LeBron and Curry accomplishing everything. Okay. Well, congrats, buddy. You're in the 0.1%. You're irrelevant. Nobody cares what you have to say. This is great for the NBA, guys. It's a breath of fresh air. It's new. It's not predictable. I think that's probably a big reason why, as to why the NBA playoffs have been the highest rated in over 15 years. But, and it's been fun. These games have been close. The Hawks and Bucks went to 6. The Clippers and Suns went to 6. Even in previous series, the Hawks and Sixers, that went the distance, right? It's been fun to watch, and these games themselves, it's not just the series, but the games themselves have been pretty close for the most part. But I want to say this, man. In regards to the Suns, it's and I'm not saying this, I'm obviously not saying this biasly because I'm not really a Suns fan anymore. I support them. I want to see them succeed, but I'm not going to take my fandom back. Like I said, I just started to. It's not that I stopped. It's not that I stopped liking the Suns. I always wanted to see them. I still wanted them to do well. I just kind of stopped caring. If that made sense. And then especially because I started to lose interest in the NBA several years ago. At this point in time, I don't really have a favorite NBA team. Yes, I want to see the Suns succeed. I'd like to see the Heat succeed. Those are the Suns mainly, but like I said, the Heat as well. Those are teams I grew up liking and supporting, and I was a big fan of. And it's just, I'm just not a huge NBA fan anymore. So it's not it's hard for me to really kind of sit there and say, I'm a big fan of this team, right? Because I'm just not a fan of the league in general, and because I'm not going to sit there and watch all the games and stuff like that during the regular season, but I still want to see the Suns do well and succeed, if that makes sense. But I want to say this about the Suns. Chris Paul, I always loved Chris Paul. Chris Paul was very fun to watch back in the days in New Orleans, and even when he went to the Clippers. I always think Chris Paul has kind of been, I kind of want to say underrated a little bit, but I always feel like he's just kind of been like that under-the-radar star player that's always been in the NBA. And other guys have just kind of been above him throughout his time. When you look at every team Chris Paul has been on, he's made it better single-handedly. He took the Hornets in his young career to the playoffs multiple times. When he went to the Clippers were an absolute failure, absolute disaster. And the addition of Chris Paul alone elevated that whole team. It brought the best out of a young Blake Griffin. DeAndre Jordan developed. Yes, they brought in guys like a Jamal Crawford, a JJ Redick, some veteran guys as well. But Chris Paul alone made the Clippers a top 4, top 5 team in the West. And yes, they didn't win anything. But it's a testament to Chris Paul. And I think, in particular, when we look at the last 2 years, what Chris Paul did for Oklahoma City was great. Yes, they didn't win the finals. But nobody expected Oklahoma City to, be anything of importance. I think a lot of people expected OKC to, not really be that good. They just had a lot of young players, and Chris Paul there took them to a winning record, took them to the playoffs, and elevated all these younger guys around him. And now we see him on the Suns, and look what he's done. The Phoenix Suns have had the core, the last 3-4 years, they've had a very similar core of guys. Booker, Ayton, Bridges has been there for a couple years. Like the team they have now was really very similar to the team they had last year. And they had the worst record in the league 3 years ago. Now you bring in a guy like Chris Paul, and they finished with the second best record in the West. They finished with, I believe, the second best record in all the NBA. And now they're in the NBA Finals. They went to the Western Conference Finals itself. Now they're in the NBA Finals. What Chris Paul has done with this Suns team alone is legendary. I think people are realizing, a lot of people are writing Chris Paul off the last few years that, he's not a top 5 point guard. He's on his way out. That's not the case. Chris Paul has shown and has proved all those people wrong that he's still one of the best guards in the league. Heck, he's still one of the best players in the league. And I think that he was always a Hall of Fame guy regardless, but I think people are really just appreciating how great this guy is. What Chris Paul has done, elevating Devin Booker. Look at DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton, the way he has played this playoffs, simply alone because of that, he's going to get a mega contract. DeAndre Ayton, yes, this season, but this whole playoff in particular is the best he's ever played. DeAndre Ayton the last 2-3 years or so, he wasn't really looking like a first overall pick. It's not that he was bad either. Not that he was a bad player at all. But he wasn't looking like a first overall pick. DeAndre Ayton now, look at what he's doing now, getting 20-20 a game, double-doubles every game, rebounding machine, everything that he's done this playoff. DeAndre Ayton's looking like a top 15 player in the league, in my opinion, with what he's done this playoffs. He's looking like the best big man in the NBA. You look at that. You look at Mikal Bridges, and you look at him flourishing, averaging 14 a game, 5 boards, a great defender. Bringing in a guy like Jay Crowder has obviously helped the Suns a lot from a defensive standpoint to perimeter shooting. Cameron Payne. Look how good Cameron Payne's been this playoffs, man. Even when Chris Paul was out the first 2 games against the Clippers. Look how good Cameron Payne played. Cameron Johnson has been a great role player in the playoffs. Chris Paul, bringing him in to really almost the same team last year, look at the difference. I mean, Chris Paul, yes, as great as Chris Paul is, obviously bringing him in is obviously going to make the team a lot better. But look at how much he elevates young guys. He brings the best out of these players. There's such a great team chemistry amongst everybody. The leadership Chris Paul brings. I mean, he even said that he wanted to come to Phoenix alone because of Devin Booker. You know? I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I said that Chris Paul should have been MVP. Even way before the playoffs started. Simply what he was doing with the Suns alone. Now we know MVP is all about stats, but if you're going to break it down, the most valuable player, it's easily Chris Paul. Easily. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. You can disagree, that's fine. You can write in the comment section that, I'm an idiot for saying that, or how could I pick Chris Paul over Nikola Jokic? Yeah, how Denver do in the playoffs? Let me know. What Chris Paul did, I don't have enough words for, man. It's absolutely been so fun watching this Suns team play together, and I think people are really just seeing how great the guy is, because whenever I see, whether it's on Twitter or if I come across something on TV, sports-related show, people were, even Scott Van Pelt, was talking about this, that, people I think are realizing, and just really appreciating how great Chris Paul is. And I think with what he's done alone with the Suns, yes, OKC, but now with the Suns, I definitely think this ups his legacy for sure. For sure. Whether he wins a championship or not, I hope he does. I'll be cheering him on, and the Suns. I think this is their year. But regardless of what happens, it's been absolutely a joy and a treat to watch this team throughout the playoffs. And don't get me started on that Suns home court advantage. You want to talk about home court advantage? That Suns team, those Suns fans, that's a home court advantage. What we saw against the Lakers, what we saw against Denver, what we even saw against the Clippers, that's a home court advantage. Absolutely a treat to see those Suns fans, especially that Denver series, and everything they brought to the table. Absolutely phenomenal atmosphere. Absolutely phenomenal. Better than any crowd this playoff. Easy. But I think this is really the Suns' season. I think this is their year. I think they're going to beat Milwaukee. We know Giannis is injured. I don't know if he's ruled out for the whole finals or not. I really don't know. Now, this could be, even without Giannis, I mean, Milwaukee still looked solid. They took care of business the last two games against Atlanta. Yes, Trae Young was injured. Trae Young did play last night, but he wasn't himself, So, yes, that factors into it, but nonetheless, though, when you don't Giannis is a top 5 player, and when you don't have a guy like that, obviously that's a huge blow. But guys like Drew Holiday has stepped up. I mean, he's had a good playoff regardless, but he stepped up big without Giannis there. Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez had over 30 a couple games ago. Bobby Portis. I think Bobby Portis is very underrated. I mean, he's been really good the last 3 games. I mean, he's good off the bench anyway. But stepping in for Giannis, and being in that starting lineup, I think he's really brought a lot of good things to that Milwaukee team. But yeah, I think this will still be a good finals. I don't think it's just going to be a sweep or anything like that at all. I could see it going, maybe 5. I could see it going 6. I think 6 is probably that realistic number. Now, if Giannis does play, maybe it might be a little bit more competitive. It depends how healthy he is. I don't know. But nonetheless, I think the Suns are going to win the championship. Yes, they're favorited. I think they're going to win the title, though. But it's just been absolutely amazing. And I think everybody who's been watching the NBA playoffs, the ratings speak for itself, but I think everybody, has enjoyed it. Has enjoyed watching this Suns team in general. They're fun to watch. They have great chemistry together. They're a fast team. They're a good shooting team. I think they play a good team-oriented game of basketball together. It's not isolation. It's not a one-man show. No. Everybody gets involved one way or another. It's a well-balanced team. The balance is great for the Suns. I don't know about you guys. I'm into sports betting. It is fun. I do like doing it, but you got to manage yourself. I know. It kind of sucks because I needed Clint Capella and I needed John Collins to both get me one more rebound, and I lost 2 bets simply because of that last night. So John Collins has been very. I think John Collins, I believe, is a free agent after this year. I think. And if he is, he's going to get a good contract, whether that's in Atlanta, whether if that's somewhere else. But John Collins has impressed me a lot throughout the playoffs. I actually really enjoy watching him play. And he's really not even that big of a guy, which is crazy. You know, he's a great rebounder. He's very flexible amongst, you know, his offensive game. He can shoot, he can play in the post. You know, I think he uses his body really well down low. He's definitely been one of the guys, I think, throughout the whole playoffs that has really impressed me. But Atlanta has nothing to be ashamed about, man. Atlanta had a great season. I think Nate McMillan did a phenomenal job. I expect him to probably be named the head coach. He should. He should with what he did with this team. But Atlanta has a promising future. Trae Young, I mean, at 22 years old, what he's done throughout the playoffs, throughout this season, has been phenomenal. Kevin Huerter has potential. He was kind of invisible the last couple games, but you know he's a good guard. Like I said, John Collins, I think, is a really special player. Clint Capella is, I think, a solid big man. You know, he's a double-double guy for the most part, I think. Cam Reddish absolutely went off. He had over 20 last game, and I think he was out like for a few months before the playoffs. So this series, he came back, and he was making the most of it. And as a Duke fan myself, it was cool to see because, you know, Cam Reddish, I love his jump shot. He's a good shooter. He definitely has a bright future in Atlanta, absolutely. And so I think Atlanta surprised everybody, I think, by how far they got. They got a great future ahead of themselves. So I think the NBA right now, as we look at it, I think they're going in a good direction, I think. I think the NBA the last several years, in my opinion, has just been terrible. I think the product's been terrible. And I stated all those reasons why. And I can go on more about that, but I'm not. I think the NBA right now, I think, is the best it's been in several years. I really do. It's competitive. It's not predictable. There's more teams balancing themselves out. There's more competition. There's a lot of young rising stars in the league, like a Trae Young, a Booker, you know, Donovan Mitchell is continuing to thrive. Ja Morant. There's a lot of guys that are, you know, really shining out this playoff. And, I mean, you look even at the Knicks. You know, the Knicks had a surprising run this year, which it's good to see. You know? That was a good atmosphere, too, when the Knicks and Hawks were playing. But it's good to see because it's time, you know, it's time for something fresh in the NBA. And that's what it needs. And that's where it is right now. And hopefully that's what continues to happen going forward because that's what the product needs. That's what it needs. But anyway, it should be a great NBA Finals. I'm very excited for it. I believe the first game's Tuesday, I think, is the first game of the Finals. Suns are home. So we will see what happens. But man, I'm telling you, as a like I said, as I was a big Suns fan growing up, it's just really cool to see them have success. You know what I mean? And heck, just get to a finals. It's absolutely incredible. It's just a really great story I think they've had this year. So, but anyway, we'll see what happens coming out of that. We'll talk about it as well. You know, as the finals progress, should be exciting. Looking forward to it. Tampa Bay and Montreal. Tampa Bay is absolutely kicking ass, and to be honest with you, I haven't even watched a game of the Stanley Cup Finals. I've been busy with other things. I've been tuning into other sports stuff, and I mentioned this last week on the show, but I can't give enough credit to Tampa Bay. As I said yesterday, yes, and as you can see my background, I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so I'm a Penguins fan, Steelers, Pirates, you know, things like that. So, but just as somebody who likes hockey in general, it's just really, it's great to see a team like Tampa Bay. Yes, they won it last year, and they're gonna repeat. But this is the model for all sport teams. You look at the stability that they've had with Cooper, their coach. You look at the stability from the head coaching position. You look at the stability from the front office. They're good at, kind of having their own talent and growing their own talent. They're a well-balanced team on both sides of the ice. And Tampa Bay, I swear, they're always in the Eastern Conference Finals at least every year. Every year, I swear they are. Every year. But it's just a testament of how well they are run. How well of an organization they're ran as. It's just remarkable. And I didn't think it was going to be this lopsided. But Montreal, here's the thing about Montreal. And I give them a lot of credit. Montreal lost a lot of games this regular season. The NHL had to shuffle their divisions around this year because of COVID. And, the teams in Canada couldn't travel outside the country. So they had to do all that. Yes, I hated it. But it is what it is. They had to readjust their schedule. They had to push back the playoffs a little bit. Montreal lost a lot of games. When you look at them, it's like, how's this team even a playoff team? But the fact they are a playoff team and they went to the Stanley Cup and that's irrelevant. Them losing all those games, I honestly think is irrelevant at this point in time because they beat all the teams in front of them in the playoffs. So they deserve to be in the Stanley Cup. And I like Carey Price. I do. I think Montreal has some good young guys to build around. But I didn't expect it to be a lopside like this. I really didn't. I like Gallagher. It's on them. I like him. And I think Montreal, I don't really know what kind of moves they're going to make in the offseason. I don't know. Free agency hasn't started. But Montreal, I think, even if they get swept, I got to give them credit. They got this far for the amount of games and not really looking much like a playoff team. I swear, they do this every year. But I got to give them credit. They took care of all the teams in front of them. They got to this point. Tampa Bay is just much more superior. Tampa Bay's more physical. They're just a better team. They got better players. They're better defensively. Their goalie, Vasilevsky, he's playing a phenomenal playoff. He can arguably be said as the best goalie in the league for sure. Tampa Bay is always good with having goalies. They had Bishop before him as well. And Bishop, he's still a quality starter on, he's still a quality goalie on Dallas. So, I think everybody thought Tampa Bay would win, but I definitely didn't expect it to be a sweep at all. Not at all. But guys like Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, I feel like, I don't know, I honestly can't even tell you how long that guy's been in the league for. I feel like he's been in the league longer than he probably has. But, he's been helping lead Tampa, Kucherov, but Vasilevsky's just been holding that whole team down. He's been holding the whole team down. And yes, I haven't been watching the Stanley Cup Finals, but I've been watching the playoffs throughout the Stanley Cup playoff, for sure. But we'll see. Tampa Bay's looking to finish it off and to repeat, and hopefully they can do that in front of their home crowd. I'd like to see that because Montreal, for whatever reason, they're only letting 2,500 people in last time I looked, which, I don't know. I think Canada is, I'm not really sure what's going on up there in regards to their protocols and stuff like that. The border's still closed, I believe. But it would be cool to see Tampa Bay win in front of a sold-out crowd at Amalie Arena. That would be really cool. But I am looking forward to the expansion draft. I believe the expansion draft is in a couple weeks. The Seattle Kraken, I'm very interested to see what teams who are they protecting, who are they letting available. So I'm very interested. They just hired a new coach a couple weeks ago. I'm not quite sure I can't remember his name. I saw it, I can't remember his name. I've honestly never heard of him. But nonetheless, the Seattle Kraken will officially be a team this year. And I'm excited for that. But as a Penguin fan, I'm kind of, I'm interested to see who they're going to take. But the expansion draft is always interesting. We saw that with the Golden Knights when the Golden Knights were coming into the league. And now we have the Seattle Kraken, which I think it's cool. Seattle finally has a hockey team. I love the Kraken name. I like their colors. I like their jerseys. We'll see what they do this year. We'll see what their team's looking like. I'm not really quite sure what to expect from them. We'll wait and see once they get their draft and their team situated, and once we get closer to September, October this year for the NHL season. I believe that they're supposed to start on time. I don't see why they wouldn't, but I don't know. I don't even know if that's been an announcement yet. I mean, I have to do my research on that, honestly, in regards of when the NHL is supposed to start. If the NHL did say that, you can sound that off in the comment section. I haven't come across that yet in regards of if they're planning the season on time, but because the Stanley Cup Final has gone this far, you know what I mean? Since they had to kind of delay the playoffs a little bit and stuff like that, I don't know if they're going to start the season a little bit later or if they're still planning on their normal time, their normal start. I'll have to check that out. But Tampa Bay's going for the sweep. But I'd like to see them win it in Tampa. But we'll see on that. Demaryius Thomas officially retired. And obviously, as a Steeler fan, one of the memories I have of Demaryius Thomas is just smoking Ike Taylor from a pass from Tim Tebow in the 2011 NFL playoffs to win the game in the first play of overtime in the wildcard round. Never forget that. But Demaryius Thomas officially retired. I think Demaryius Thomas, one point in time, was definitely a top 10 wide receiver back in the day with Denver. I think Demaryius Thomas was always an underrated receiver. He was very talented when he was playing for Denver, and he officially called it quits. I believe New England signed him last season. I think they signed him, and then they cut him. But other than that, I'm not quite sure if any other teams were really in on him. I mean, he was past his prime, obviously, and he's in his 30s and stuff like that, mid 30s. But he still had a good career though. Demaryius Thomas still had a good career, but it's just that one memory. That whenever I think Demaryius Thomas, that's one play, one of the things that pops up. The first thing that pops up in my mind is that. Unbelievable. But Demaryius Thomas officially retires. But some guys that I'm looking at to bounce back this year in the NFL, and I can't wait till the NFL season starts, guys. Full stadiums are back. We're going back to that, which is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of stories going into the season as well. And we can talk about that another time, in regards of what are some of the top stories. Maybe we'll talk about that next weekend. And really things to look out for. But some guys that I'm looking to, at least a couple guys, that I'm interested to see how they bounce back, right? I'm interested in J.J. Watt from the Cardinals. Now, I thought it would have been cool, yes, if he came to Pitt. That would have been cool. But we know their cap situation. J.J. wanted more money. But J.J. Watt going to the Cardinals, the only thing is obviously the injuries. We all know, as football fans, that J.J. Watt has an injury history. He's an absolute dominant player, one of the best defensive players over the last 10 years, for sure. But I'm just interested to see how much he's going to really change that defense, because the Cardinals' defense, that secondary scares me. Yes, Budda Baker's there, but Patrick Peterson's gone. They got Robert Alford at corner, Byron Murphy. They brought in Malcolm Butler at corner. They got Thompson at the other safety spot. But I just don't know, guys. I just don't know how stable that Cardinals secondary is going to be. I mean, yes, they have a good piece or two. But Alford, Byron Murphy, I mean, he's still young, but he hasn't really shown much. Malcolm Butler, He's not ass, but, he's not really what he was on the Patriots. I think he had some good moments on Tennessee. I don't know. I think that front seven for the Cardinals, I think really for that defense to excel, they're really going to need that front seven. And Isaiah Simmons is definitely going to have more snaps. I don't really think Isaiah Simmons got really much of a good opportunity last year. He didn't do anything impressing at all. But I don't think he really had much of an opportunity. But him moving into that inside linebacker spot, along with Zaven Collins, J.J. Watt's down there. I do like Marcus Golden. I think Marcus Golden has had his best years have been on the Cardinals. And I always liked Hicks, too, as their inside linebacker, but they're looking to let him facilitate a trade. But nonetheless, I mean, that front seven in particular and that pass rush is really going to have... I really think if they can click, that's going to help that secondary that much more. Because that secondary, it's a question mark and it's kind of sketchy. It's kind of skeptical. But J.J. Watt, I'm interested to see how much he's going to fare into that Cardinals defense this year. And it's going to be weird seeing him in a Cardinals jersey. The other guy that I'm interested to see how he bounces back, I'm interested in seeing, well, there's quite a few guys. And let me know as well, who you might think might have some bounce back seasons this season. I'm interested in Joe Burrow, man. I'm interested, and it's not even necessarily a bounce back year, but it's, coming off a big injury like that. Joe Burrow had a really bad knee injury last year. And I loved watching Joe Burrow at LSU. And I think Joe Burrow has a really good future ahead of him. And bringing in a guy like Jamar Chase, who was, his guy at LSU. Tyler Boyd's a very underrated wide receiver. T. Higgins had a really nice rookie year. The offensive line's a question mark for him. But if Joe Burrow can come back week one, and, maybe it might take him a few games to kind of get acclimated, but if Joe Burrow can at least, kind of, get that rust off, whatever he needs to do, I think Joe Burrow can definitely be primed to win Comeback Player of the Year. I think Joe Burrow can be primed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year, for sure. I think he has an arsenal of guys at his hand. He's got a good running back in Joe Mixon. I think the Bengals, they've added some good things on defense. Mike Hilton, yes, it sucks. But Jesse Bates, is there. Von Bell's aside him. I mean, they added Hendrickson from the Saints. They have the Bengals are, I don't think the Bengals are there yet in regards of like having a winning record, making a playoff push. I don't think they're quite there yet. But I think Joe Burrow is definitely primed as long as he can be healthy and he can come back and, kind of get back to that form he was last year. I definitely think Joe Burrow can easily be one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. And I'm wishing success for him. Yes, as a Steeler fan, sure, I don't like the Bengals. Bengals fans don't like the Steelers. That's the way it goes. But it still doesn't mean that I can't like Joe Burrow or I don't think he's fun to watch or anything like that. I enjoyed watching him at LSU. He was probably my favorite college player that year. And I think he has a lot of promise in this league. And I think the Bengals are trending in the right direction. I think they need a little bit more time, but they're going in the right direction. But I think J.J. Watt and Joe Burrow are two guys that come up off the top of my head that I'm interested to see. I mean, those are kind of some headline guys in regards of, things to look out for this year. And like I said, I might talk about that next weekend in regards of like, what are like some of really kind of the big stories going the NFL season this year, But Joe Burrow, I think, has a bright future, and I wouldn't be surprised, man. I wouldn't be surprised if as long as he's healthy, that he wins Comeback Player of the Year and ends up being a top 10 quarterback. I would not be surprised at all. I think he has some of the best receivers you could honestly ask for in this league. Some of the best young receivers you could ask for is that core, for sure. But I'm excited for football season, guys. We only got less than a month until we hit August, and training camp is coming up soon. But we'll have the Hall of Fame game. I believe it's August 11th, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, I didn't really want to make this episode too long, like really the last few weeks have been on for Sunday's show, just because of how much we were talking about, how many things were happening. Really not much Major League Baseball to talk about. I talked about the substance issues over the last few weeks, so if you guys are interested in hearing that, that's on the audio version of the podcast. But nonetheless, guys, we're going to end it there for the 4th of July episode, and I'm excited till we get to training camp because there's going to be a lot of stories come out of that. A lot more things we can talk about than what we have right now. But nonetheless, I wanted to get on here, do a little 4th of July episode and, just kind of talk about some quick things in the NBA and Stanley Cup, maybe a couple things NFL related. But hopefully next weekend, we have some more things coming up, more things we can get our teeth into and talk about on here on this show. Can't even talk on this show and everything like that. But comment your thoughts below, guys. Let me know your thoughts on maybe some guys you might see bouncing back this year. It might be primed for a bounce back year. Let me know what you think about the NBA Finals. Let me know what you think about who you guys think's gonna win. You think the Suns are gonna win? You think the Bucks are gonna win? Let me know about that. Anything else? I love to interact. I love to talk to whoever and just have good sports opinions, good sports discussions, stuff like that. Whether you agree or disagree, that's all the fun of it. But hopefully next weekend, like I said, there'll be more to talk into. It's kind of been cut and dry the last couple weeks, I feel like, in the sports area. Outside the NBA, it's kind of been more cut and dry, so that's why I'm very excited as we get a little bit further in July. And once we hit August, guys, football season's come back, fantasy, everything else in between. We'll be talking all about that, but I'm very excited. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of In Hindsight, and hopefully, I hope you guys have a good 4th of July. Enjoy your 4th of July today with your family, your friends. If you're keeping it down low, anything like that as well, enjoy it. And I hope you guys as well have a good rest of your week. We might be back the middle of the week here for maybe some extra content. I'll let you know. You guys can follow my Facebook page at In Hindsight if you want to interact, you want to reach out to me. But just to keep up with the channel, I'll post it as well in the community section on YouTube. You can follow my Twitter at Nate_Heintz. You can follow my Instagram at Nathan_Heintz as well to keep up with the channel and everything else. But yeah, that's going to do it for episode 16 here, guys. I got to get ready, head out here soon for the 4th of July festivities. But anyway, we'll be back here next weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Like I said, 3 o'clock. I know right now it's past 3 o'clock, but 3 o'clock's that main time. But it's just been absolutely crazy this weekend with so many things going on. But nonetheless, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your 4th, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll be back here next week. We'll see you then. All right, guys. Have a good 4th.